when we go to its absolute extremes, the rational world underscores its own limitations through Gödel's incompleteness theorem, Russell's paradox, and quantum uncertainty principles. Material particles behind the shower curtain scream at us in unison, "Too soon. We aren't ready for you, and you're not ready for us. Turn around. Turn inward. Go back now." For a worldview lit dominantly by certainty of intellectual discernment paradoxically manifests ever greater uncertainty, like a glorified game of whack-a-mole, a dog chasing its own tail. Our best efforts to sit comfortably in a scientific and rational world are thus doomed to fail, leaving us in the twilight of these idols forced to reconcile our folly. I, for one, am not impressed by the size and savagery of your central intelligence.
Not impressed.
But if we seek to be impressed, then we need only stand in awe of the absolutist's monument to absurdity. Just as the phallic tail of the Ouroboros is eaten by the mouth of its own beastly head, the smarts of the Western man sharpens the spear only to be held by the brute who puts it to use against his own brother. The brute merely an inescapable mirror image of a thoughtless scientific pursuit. Nietzsche says, "Is it necessary to expose the errors which lay in his faith in reason at any price?"
And why would we want to weaponize this material?
As a deterrent? A silver bullet to keep in reserve to use against the Kryptonians, so the day does not come, madame, when your children are waving daisies at a reviewing stand. You don't have to use a silver bullet, but if you forge one, well then, we don't have to depend upon the kindness of monsters.
Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea. Take a weapon of assassination and call it deterrence. You won't fool a fly or me. I'm not gonna drink it.
It is a piece of self-deception on the part of philosophers and moralists to suppose that they can extricate themselves from degeneration by merely waging war upon it.
You're gonna go to war. Jesus, Alfred counted dead. Thousands of people. If we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. And we have to destroy him.
They cannot thus extricate themselves. That which they choose as a means, as the road to salvation, is in itself, again, only an expression of degeneration. They only modify its mode of manifesting itself. They do not abolish it.
They were hunters.
So falls the house of Wayne.
Friends, enemies, let us count the ways of this profound tragicomedy of Ouroboric irony. Behold the hilarity of a high IQ.
And when we exposed General Zod to the mineral, this happened. Profound biodegradation.
We concluded the mineral could be weaponized if a large enough sample was found. And then, among the fishes, a whale!
Rube Goldbergian.
Philanthropist, bibliophile, true friend of the Library of Metropolis.
Yes, Euclid's triangle inequality. The shortest distance between any 2 points is a straight path.
About face.
I don't know how to lose.
You'll learn.
I'll learn. If man won't kill God.
2, 1.
The devil will do it.
Into brainless barbarism. Lex Luthor, the smart and sharp-witted.
Now the secret is the height, is the building material. It's light metals which sway a bit in the wind.
Calculating and cunning, absolutely idolizes material knowledge, the intellect.
Books are knowledge, and knowledge is power. The bittersweet pain among men is having knowledge with no power, because that is paradoxical, and
The Kryptonian archive contains knowledge from 100,000 different worlds.
Good. Teach me.
But where does that lead him? Face to face with his own repressed inner nature. A brainless beast. A desecrating dummy. You see, in his effort to elevate himself, to save himself from the physical tyranny of his father, to become the Western standard ideal smart man, he creates it himself and is finally confronted with the potentiality of his own self-annihilation. Circling right back to square one.
I'm going to say this one more time. The warden wants to speak to you, so stand to your feet. Turn around and face the wall. Place your forehead against the wall. Put your hands behind your back so that I can come in and restrain you.
An astute and acute.
Horus, Apollo, Jehovah, Kal-El, Clark, Joseph, Kent.
Circuitous pursuit.
Round and round they go to find Superman.
Made moot.
hello, break the bad news.
I'd rather do the breaking in person.
You've lost.
I don't know how to lose.
You'll learn.
I'll learn.
By absolutist brutes.
I cannot let you win. I gave the bat a fighting chance to do it, but he was not strong enough.
Well, shoot. I guess we forgot the truth of our roots. The urge to control and dominate the world is but man's urge to rediscover the comforting certainty of his mother's womb, hence mother boxes. That's right, man's denial of the irrational world through overemphasis of the intellect and technology, taken to its logical extreme, is not a Darwinian domination of the world, but a regression back to a stagnant infancy in the darkness of the womb through precipitation of the final catastrophe.
Down with the modern world. Back to the Dark Ages.
I have come to enlighten you to the great darkness. He's here.
Rejoice! We made it. Everything in the unconscious seeks outward manifestation, and the personality, too, desires to evolve out of its unconsciousness conditions and to experience itself as a whole. In short, unconscious of his unconscious, the Occidental accidentally ignores the shadow of his own instincts, but it doesn't ignore him. Man's instinct wills to express itself. Man's instincts will express themselves. This is why Krypton, who saw the instinctual process of natural birth as heresy, nevertheless expressed their repressed sexual natures in their architecture and technology. This is why Lex proudly gave birth to his own father. Nietzsche emphasized the instincts. Jung emphasized the shadow and the anima. Eliade emphasized a religious nature that modern Western man tends to suppress in favor of the comfort of a sensible, desacralized world. Eliade mentions differences in two types of religious experiences juxtaposing between the hunter and sedentary cultivators, between the nomadic hunters and the sedentary cultivators. There is a similarity in behavior that seems to us infinitely more important than their differences. Both live in a sacralized cosmos.
Superman was never real. Just the dream of a farmer from Kansas.
That farmer's dream is all some people have. It's all that gives them hope. This means something.
All downhill from here. Down to the floodplain. Farm at the bottom of the world. I remember one season the water came bad, but we managed to stop the water. Your grandma baked me cake. Said I was a hero. We blocked the water all right. We sent it upstream. The whole Lang farm washed away. While I ate my hero cake, their horses were drowning. I used to hear them wailing in my sleep.
Did the nightmares ever stop?
Yeah. When I met your mother, she gave me faith that there's good in this world. She was my world. I miss you, son.
I miss you too, Dad.
There's a new kind of mean in him. He is angry, and he's hunting.
This may be the only thing I do that matters.
20 years of fighting criminals amounts to nothing.
Criminals are like weeds, Alfred. Pull one up, another grows in its place. This is about the future of the world. It's my legacy. You know, my father sat me down right here, told me what Wayne Manor was built on.
Railroads, real estates, and oil.
First generation made their fortune trading with the French. Pelts and skins. They were hunters.
Both share in a cosmic sacrality manifested equally in the animal world and the vegetable world. We need only compare their existential situations with that of a man of the modern societies, living in a desacralized cosmos, and we shall immediately be aware of all that separates him from them. At the same time, we realize the validity of comparison between religious facts pertaining to different cultures. All these facts arise from a single type of behavior, that of Homo Religiosus. Well, Batman, the hunter, hunts criminals like the cops would, so therefore he has to judge others. Superman saves people, and through that his intention to inspire, i.e., cultivate the land, cultivate the earth by planting seeds of growth so that one is inspired to act out heroically themselves, i.e., growing the heroism within others.
The people of Earth are different from us, it's true. But ultimately, I believe that's a good thing. They won't necessarily make the same mistakes we did. Not if you guide them, Cal. Not if you give them hope. That's what this symbol means. The symbol of the House of El means hope. Embodied within that hope is the fundamental belief in the potential of every person to be a force for good. That's what you can bring them.
We see this visually after he sacrifices himself. We see the candlelight held by each individual, emphasizing the inner fire of passion and meaning within them, cultivated through his sacred deed.
Between gods and men, Prometheus went with us, and he ruined Zeus's plan to destroy mankind, and for that he was given a thunderbolt. True! Hey, that seems unfair.
This is the mirror image of Promethean fire, usually discussed in the sense of technological know-how of creating literal fire. Here, Superman is Prometheus in a different sense. Not the light of material knowledge, as Lex would prefer, but rather spiritual knowledge, reigniting the flame to strengthen and light the way for their individual natures, passions, and hopes. It is in this way he brings fire to the people. It is in this way he cultivates the land as the Homo Religiosus hero farmer. Modern non-religious man assumes a new existential situation. He regards himself solely as the subject and agent of history, as he refuses all appeal to transcendence, i.e. the irrational.
God is all-powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all-powerful. They need to see the fraud you are, the blood on your hands.
Man makes himself, and he only makes himself, completely in proportion as he desacralizes himself and the world. The sacred is the prime obstacle to his freedom.
I don't hate the sinner. I hate the sin.
10 seconds to end.
And yours, my friend, is existing.
He will become himself only when he is totally demysticized. He will not be truly free until he has killed the last God.
If man won't kill God,
2, 1.
the devil will do it. Born to destroy you. Your doomsday.
Lex is precisely this modern man, plotting against the heroes that seek to maintain a sacralized world. But this means that non-religious man has been formed by opposing his predecessor, by attempting to empty himself of all religion and all transhuman meaning. He recognizes himself in proportion. He frees and purifies himself from the superstitions of his ancestors.
Do you know the oldest lie in America, Senator? It's that power can be innocent. Good luck.
More specifically, he believes power cannot be innocent, and so essentially holds cynical attitudes towards those that want to stand as examples of the contrary. Thus, he seeks to desecrate or desacralize that religious or sacred image of the hero in the eyes of the public by killing them.
Yes, the Almighty comes clean about how dirty he is when it counts. To save Martha, bring me the head of the bat. Now God is good as dead.
This is no different than the bullies in Man of Steel who want to tear down something holy, tear down something that goes against their choice, to settle in cynicism. In this sense, they are simply jealous. Lex is a bully who has been bullied by his father and wants to take his frustrations out on the world.
No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from Daddy's fist and abominations.
He also scoffs at Batman when he mentions the idea of compassion.
We have hospitals to treat the mentally ill with compassion.
The man of the traditional societies is admittedly a Homo Religiosus, but his behavior forms part of the general behavior of mankind. The general behavior of mankind. Just like the instincts, the inner nature, the shadow, all seek outward manifestation, so too does our compulsion toward seeking religious or sacred meaning in the world. We are descendants of Homo Religiosus. We are Homo Religiosus. One of our greatest instincts is precisely to project meaning on the world. So modern man going against or scoffing at religious thought is to go against his instinctual nature embedded throughout our evolution. Man's greatest gift, his greatest strength of superheroism, is the ability to paint upon the blank canvas a projection of meaning onto an otherwise meaningless existence. To suppress or deny this impulse is to deny life itself. Though Lex wants to desacralize the world, even he is Homo Religiosus, since he is descendant of Homo Religiosus. Remember that what we are within will seek outward manifestation, regardless of whether we try to suppress our inner nature. And so we see that in his effort to tear down a god, to go out of his way to secularize the world, he ultimately finds himself sounding like a religious zealot.
I don't hate the sinner. I hate the sin.
10 seconds to end.
And yours, my friend, is existing.
Further, by the end, we see a visual confirmation of his alliance with the satanic, in communion with the devil. There goes that Ouroboric irony again, a long route to desacralize the world just to hold religious communion with Steppenwolf. Whether or not he did this particular act to just appear insane, the visual still conveys the irony that he is ultimately acting out religiously. His mesmerizing gaze into the kryptonite also suggests he treats it as a sacred artifact, an artifact that gives him purpose. Profane man cannot help preserving some vestiges of the behavior of religious men. Though they are emptied of religious meaning, do what he will, he is an inheritor. He cannot utterly abolish his past, since he is himself the product of his past. He forms himself by a series of denials and refusals, but he continues to be haunted by the realities that he has refused and denied. To acquire a world of his own, he has desacralized the world in which his ancestors lived. But to do so, he has to be obliged to adopt the opposite of an earlier type of behavior, and that behavior is still emotionally present to him, in one form or another, ready to be reactualized in his deepest setting. A man recovers best from his exceptional nature, his intellectuality, by giving his animal instincts a chance. The goal of treatment by catharsis is full confession, no merely intellectual acknowledgement of the facts, but their confirmation by the heart and the release of the suppressed emotions. Nietzsche, Jung, Eliade, and many others are making a desperate and important plea to humanity. If we hope to continue as a species, we must not forget the truth of our roots. Our instincts, our shadow, our inner Homo Religiosus are embedded in our psyches, and desperately seek outward manifestation. Make room for them, for they also hold divine power. This is why Batman fights so passionately here. It is part of his cathartic recovery. He's fighting for a just cause to save Martha from being burned alive. This is where he can unleash his aggression. This is where his inner nature, his inner animal, comes out to be the hero. So too, there is a cathartic release of the instinctual when Barry senses and responds to the danger. Barry is holding himself back overall, suppressing his inner nature, and so too his profound gifts. The problem isn't that he's trying to get a normal job or help his dad in prison. It's that he does so at the expense of the gifts that reside within him, that have become a part of his nature. When he first enters, the dogs representing creatures that predominantly operate on instinct respond negatively to him. That is, he is in conflict with his inner nature, suppressing it to find a normal job. Note the dogs are behind a gate, a fence, a prison, i.e., they are suppressed. After he allows his inner nature to take over, he breaks free from the mundane. He frees his inner animal to be, to live exposed in daylight, thereby embracing this other part of him that he otherwise wants to downplay in favor of the comforting safety of standard and rational faculties. He returns with a boon for the dogs, as if to say he is feeding that other part of himself that also needs to be expressed, that also needs to be supported, not denied. What is inferior or even worthless belongs to me as my shadow and gives me substance and mass. How can I be substantial? If I fail to cast a shadow, I must have a dark side also, if I am to be whole. And inasmuch as I become conscious of my shadow, I also remember that I am a human being like any other. So too there is a cathartic release for Victor, who at first holds himself back, suppresses his inner nature. He's not proud of who he is. He sees his instinctual nature, the inner animal of himself, as a monster. So he hides in his room, despite having profound gifts. When he learns to embrace his inner nature, when he learns that his instincts hold profound power, only then does he allow himself to fly. How can Superman fly so high? His initial takeoff left an obscured view of the ground below. He tried only to go higher and higher. He thus precipitated his own collapse through exhaustion because he ignored an internal necessity, the necessity of rest in order to regain energy. Before his second takeoff, he looks outward toward the sun. He slowly closes his eyes to look inward. He lowers himself to the ground. We see his silhouette embrace the whiteness of the icy Arctic. Yin and yang together, not in conflict, but in support of one another. The second time he takes off, we see and are conscious of an imprint of roots on the ground below. We see that as he flies high, this time he doesn't just go higher and higher. This time he makes loops allowing him to rest on the way down, falling closer to the earth, the water, the animals, all symbols of the unconscious. So he can regain energy, allowing him to fly back up again. By integrating both modalities, not ignoring one in favor of the other or pitting one against the other, but synthesizing both into a new paradigm of up and down, active and passive, conscious with the unconscious, he is able to reach ever greater heights. He becomes the bridge between two peoples, between two modalities, the above and the below, the masculine and the feminine. In both cases, he falls, but in one, he crashes into the earth because he ignored the other paradigm, and it manifested itself anyway. In the other case, he consciously falls to fly. He makes room for the other necessity of rest that our bodies demand, even Superman's. He is then capable of staying in the air indefinitely and flies gracefully throughout. To achieve greater heights, man must embrace his innate duality, his animal nature. In doing so, we can also surprisingly discover our latent power. In our effort to escape our irrational nature, we end up immersed in it anyway. We are animals, we have a shadow, we are Homo Religiosus, we have irrational impulses that need to be expressed, that will be expressed. The solution is therefore not to bury them or fight them, but to find their balance, find their place, find their healthy and harmonious expression, so that what was once the source of the constraining guilt of beastly sin, keeping us confined in our shells, thinking of ourselves as monsters, is the source that gives much needed strength to fly. It is, after all, our inner Homo Religiosus who is ever ready to take on that gargantuan task of painting the world's blank canvas with a picture of purpose. And finally, the elephant stares back at us, and we thank him for being so persistent.
Consecrated, unchanged.